Well, that's a great little segue, isn't it? To our former fearless leader, George W. Bush. Everybody gave such a hailed speech at the 9/11 memorial in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, where United 93 went down. And look, I will admit, anytime this man opens his mouth, I just want him to shut up. And I can't help but think exactly what you were just talking about, Krystal, about the damage that he wrought upon this country. And I'll be going into a lot of that more in my monologue. But here's what he had to say, which caused all of MSNBC and the blue check liberal crowd in order to love what was going on. Let's take a listen.
As a nation, our adjustments have been profound. Many Americans struggle to understand why an enemy would hate us with such zeal. The security measures incorporated into our lives are both sources of comfort and reminders of our vulnerability. And we have seen growing evidence that the dangers to our country can come not only across borders, but from violence that gathers within. There is little cultural overlap between violent extremists abroad and violent extremists at home. But in their disdain for pluralism, in their disregard for human life, in their determination to defile national symbols, they are children of the same foul spirit, and it is our continuing duty to confront them. When it comes to the unity of America, those days seem distant from our own. Malign force seems at work in our common life that turns every disagreement into an argument, and every argument into a clash of cultures. So much of our politics has become a naked appeal to anger, fear, and resentment. That leaves us worried about our nation and our future together. I come without explanations or solutions. I can only tell you what I've seen.
It's hearing the man most responsible for the conditions of where we are, hearing the person who used our righteous anger on 9/11 to draw us into war in Iraq. It's like, it makes me sick, the fact that people take him seriously. And this isn't a joke. Glenn, as usual, go ahead and put this up there, this tweet, where we have the fawning over George W. Bush's speech. They love him. Look, the way that they discuss, Bill Clinton says, "Thank you, my friend, for your powerful and much-needed words on this day." Keith Olbermann, whose entire career was built on calling out the lies of this man, says even George W. Bush now recognizes Trump and those who directly participated in the 16Q are terrorists, surely as the 9/11 ones were. I'll say it again. Trump damaged America in a way bin Laden only dreamed of. Then, Damali Jang Fast, he got us Trump, but he's also right about Trump. And then, finally, Michael Besklaas, who, one of those presidential historians who just happens to always agree with the media, says, almost weeping, President George W. Bush rebukes those Americans who have turned their backs on the America I know. The America that he knows is gone. And you know why? It's because of him. It's like the complicity. And look, I know he seems like a nice guy, but personal affect does not matter. What you do in office matters more than anything. There's no doubt in my mind he's probably the worst president that we've had since James Buchanan, and even then he can probably give him a run for his money. And to see him resuscitated, and even worse, draw some connection between January 6th and then 9/11, and on top of that, Krystal, justify the security measures of the Patriot Act and the civil liberties infringements that were foisted upon us in the post-9/11 age, what he's doing is declaring and pushing a new war on domestic terror.
That's exactly right. Full circle. All of the sins of him and his administration and his cronies erased. They've whitewashed the war on terror and are now using this pretext as 1/6 to wage a new war on terror, this time directly on our own civilians. Listen, in some ways the nice ones are way more dangerous. Way more dangerous, because I despise Donald Trump. I think he was a horrible president. I think he did a lot of terrible things to this country and to the world. There's no comparison. Bush, what he did was orders of magnitude worse.
Right.
The lives, hundreds of thousands, possibly up to 1 million lives lost in that region because of him. The surveillance that has been foisted, the massive executive power grab that will never be rolled back by any president. The lies about the wars, the lies about the surveillance, all of that because of him. Not to mention the tax cuts for rich people, not to mention the building up to the complete financial collapse that, destroyed the entire middle class of America.
Free trade.
And yeah, I mean,
China.
all of it. What he was able to do, destabilized an entire region, fed more terrorism, created more terrorists. It's insane that anyone could look at this man and say, let's hear what he has to say. And then go beyond that and be like, oh, that was amazing. He's so wise. He's so great. Even he understands how bad Trump was. The Olbermann one is really particularly galling because as you said, I mean, he
built his career.
Made his name, built his career on understanding actually how bad that dude was and how horrific and how evil his actions were in terms of what he did to us and did to the world. To stand there and give this speech and be like, well, I don't have any answers. I don't know what happened. You happened. I have the answer for you. You happened. And him and all of his cronies who now get trotted out on cable news, Nicole Wallace with her 2 hours on MSNBC, potential heir apparent to Rachel Maddow's hour possibly. All of these people resuscitated, their crimes erased. And we wonder why our politics are so screwed up and why the mass of Americans hate you so much. That's the other piece of this, is all of the blame, none of it is pointed at elites, right? It's all like, oh, the American people, they've turned their back on what we're supposed to be about. No, you all did this to us.
You did this,
You did this to us.
It's funny. Guess who anchored NBC News' coverage of 9/11? It was Nicole Wallace and Brian Williams. So two liars,
wow.
Actually. But one of them happens to be the bigger liar, and that's Nicole Wallace, who helped sell the war in Iraq and worked for W. Bush during that time. I couldn't believe it. And she was like relaying anecdotes about her time in the White House and what it was like for her. And I'm just sitting there like boiling with rage. At the same time, they have Condoleezza Rice on to, I kid you not, talk about maternal mortality rates in Afghanistan. And I'm like, yeah, as you care so much, how'd the mortality rate in Iraq work out in Baghdad? When you have an answer and you will finally be held for account for that, I will happy to be sit with you. It's funny though, Krystal, the reason we're spending so much time on this during our show is I realize our audience is very young. Some of them may not remember. And it's one of those things where like, yeah, 9/11, that was crazy. And then the war in Iraq, like that was crazy. It wasn't just crazy. It wasn't inevitable. These were deliberate choices that were made by these people that ruined, and I really mean ruined, both my childhood and this country. Like they ruined any of the promise that we had in the 2000s. They squandered our wealth abroad. They squandered, the goodwill and the righteous anger of people post 9/11. They dealt a blow to millions and also penalized the working class here at home. Like the damage they have done is incalculable. And it's like, maybe I just want to try to explain people why we are so angry.
Yeah.
Because you have to understand, there were two paths, and the path that they took us down to get us Trump and all this other craziness in our politics, who do you think is responsible? It was him, and it was the people who worked for him, the people that he empowered. And then to see the same people in the media who helped sell us the war in Iraq, and then who didn't ever hold them to question, and who still respect them. That's actually the worst part.
Yeah.
It all just shows you how corrupt and filthy the entire system is. It's like, even I can't believe it anymore.
They fed our servicemen and women into a meat grinder for 2 decades.
And they didn't care about them.
The toll that was exacted on those families, not just through loss of lives, not just through loss of limbs, but the lost time with your family, missing the births, missing the deaths, missing the birthdays, all of those things.
PTSD too.
The PTSD, I mean, the number of veterans who are committing suicide every day, it's an epidemic. These people, very few of them served, very few of them send their sons and daughters to fight and die in these needless wars. So It is completely disgusting, and the way that the media has rehabilitated them, celebrates them. Oh, isn't it cute? George W. Bush and Michelle Obama are friends. Isn't that sweet? Isn't that really the best of America? Everybody come together. No, this bipartisan consensus around these wars was evil. It was evil, and it did so much damage, and we can never forget who was culpable. And listen, I think, the idea of ever holding them to account is far past.
Yeah, it's over.
And that's another whole issue. The fact that elites, when they commit crimes, not only do they not face any sort of punishment or have to have any accountability, but they're celebrated. They're celebrated.
You make more money. Yeah.
That was what was so disgusting. He was the only president, current or former, who spoke on 9/11. Everybody else chose to observe in silence. And this is what we got from him.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it. You get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.